talk is fairly, it's not technical, but what would you say to a person who comes to you, a friend, who is actually in the grieving process of having some real horrible thing happen to them?
It happened just earlier this week. One of my very good friends who doesn't live near me sent me a text that her mother is diagnosed with a very severe form of aggressive stomach cancer. And so immediately, I mean, number one, she's my friend, and so my heart goes out to her immediately. I've heard her talk frequently about her mother. I know that both my friend and her mother and her father are all believers, and so I don't worry about their ultimate destiny. I feel secure in their ultimate destiny. But my immediate response is, you know, I don't want this to sound like it's a cookbook answer. It's a real answer. It's the NT Wright response. You know, I bring the love of Christ to bear, not just in the words that I share, but in supporting her in every way I can and in praying. And as a Christian, I believe that God brings real solace, sometimes healing, but always real solace to those of us who turn to him in prayer. And I know that my friend, I don't want to say her name, but I know my friend, I've shared with many other friends who know her. I know that she's been deeply encouraged by the response of her friends who are aware of her suffering and her mother's suffering. You know, whether we're a Christian or not, we face things like cancer, and we face suffering, and we face ultimately death. And I guess what I'm trying to share and help us see is that as Christians, we can bring hope into the middle of those types of adversities that we encounter. Hope that is not easy to find, and I would even suggest that it's probably downright impossible to find apart from the promise of God or the love of our brothers and sisters in Christ. Now, of course, if I'm not a Christian, I still have the love and support of my family, and thank God for that. And as Christians, I would say that, you know, it's our call to bring even love and compassion, regardless of a person's religious perspective or disposition, and that just really ought to be the hallmark. Every time we see suffering, that needs to be, our heart needs to be God's heart, and God's heart is to bear with us in our suffering and to encourage us that it's temporary and that ultimately there will be a greater glory.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah.
You paid me a great compliment, AJ, by asking me to be able to chime in on some
Absolutely.
of these.
Would you like to chime in on this one, Ross?
I would.
Okay.
I would. I think,
yeah, I did. I don't like just hearing myself talk. So,
well,
so I asked
like
Ross if he would weigh in. So.
I read a headline to an article once, and I just thought just the headline had so much in it. And it was, you can ask why God doesn't do more, but the real question is, why don't we do more?
Yeah.
We're looking for God to take care of situations that he has given to us to deal with.
That's absolutely right.
And we punt, we hand it off, we try to give it back to him. And you and I have a common friend right now who's in Las Vegas taking care of
his mother who's not doing well.
His mother who's not doing well. And, you know, how do you and I, as friends of him, what are we supposed to do at this time? And I think, you know, this whole question of evil and suffering, if you turn it around and think, imagine no pain and suffering in the world, none at all, zero.
I actually think we wouldn't have these virtues that we value so much. There would be no courage. There would be no need for courage. There would be no compassion. We'd all just be fine and dandy, and we wouldn't need these things, right? And we'd have I just think it's a bizarre thought when you really start to think it through. Right.
We'd have the shallowest relationships because we wouldn't need each other. There'd be nothing gained from the relationships that we have, and so. It seems obvious that something is necessary to bind us together in community.
Yeah.
And it sure seems excessive sometimes, but there's nothing else that can suffice but some pain and suffering to keep us bonded together.
Yeah, and I think it's also an instrument for getting our attention and maybe asking those deeper questions that sometimes we just don't take time to ask. But when we're faced with tragedy or adversity or pain or suffering, it's kind of like this thing we can't we can't sidestep.
Yeah.
It sort of forces the issues for us, if you will.
Good.